Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the More Than Skill podcast. My name is Kara. Thanks so much for being here today. I have an exciting episode because I get to talk about myself. I thought it might be a good time to share a little bit of my background and just basically how I became to have such an interest in mental strategy, why it's so important to me, and my connection to all of it. Just so my new listeners know what's happening and know who I am and how I got to where I am today. So that's what we're doing. Yay. Before we get into that, I do have your mental strategy tidbit for today, which is the following. It's a little bit of a challenge to you. Today's mental strategy tidbit is I want you to think about this phrase that I'm about to say. It's to observe without judgment. So we are hardwired to pass judgment on pretty much all observations from the time we're little. Like, you don't just look at a ball, you know that it's the ball is red and the ball is round and the ball is bouncy, and maybe you like the ball, maybe you don't like the ball, maybe the ball hit you in the face and you hate balls, that kind of thing, right? So we're always observing things and judging them. And as a coach, that's really our job throughout our practices and our competitions and whatnot. There's never really a time that goes by where you're looking at something and you're not giving it a value. You're not assigning it a value of good, bad, right, or wrong, right? So I want you to start thinking about how to observe something without passing judgment. And what you will kind of frame that, how you'll frame that is just to notice things. So switch from observing to noticing, and understand that when you're noticing, it doesn't have any judgment. It just kind of is. It's just there. There's nothing to be said about it. This is kind of a hard concept to wrap your head around, and it's definitely going to take a lot of practice and something that you're going to have to really concentrate on and really focus on. But you do want to give it a whirl. It's just going to help you calm your mind, be a more relaxed person, not be so set on dissecting every single problem that you come across. So for instance, say, you're going throughout your day and you're like, I'm tired. Well, none of us can just say you're tired. We have to think about it. We'd be like, I'm tired. Why am I tired? Did I not have a nap? Did I not get good sleep last night? And then you switch into problem solving mode. Oh, what do I need to do to not feel tired? Should I take an energy drink? Should I do this or that? So it's it's mental exhaustion, Let's just start noticing things without really passing judgment on what it means. Now, can you do this at your practices? No. But you can teach your kids to kind of help them understand, how to do that and what the benefits are to them. Just observe, notice things, but don't pass judgment. And you can do the same things with your thoughts. So I'm really bad at this, but I have thoughts in my head, and I always take the time to dissect my thoughts, and I judge my thoughts, and I just go very deep into my thoughts. But let's all try to just have your thoughts as a moving train. It's just this thought comes by and it's oh, there's a thought, and then it goes away and you don't have to dissect it. Observe without judgment. I feel like I probably did a terrible job explaining that, but that is my challenge to you today. See if you can start practicing that. Let things be things, or let emotions be emotions, or thoughts be thoughts. They don't need to be dissected or judged. Okay? Perfection. Let's go ahead and get into the episode. It's all about me. And I do have quite an interesting story. And I will let you know how it kind of connects to what I am doing here with teaching these mental strategies to our youth athletes. So I'll set the scene for you. I was 12, 13-ish. Awkward as we all are in that age. Really into cheerleading. I got great grades because I was forced to by my father. I'm just kidding. I was decent at school. Maybe not a straight A student, but C's and low B's were not allowed in my home. I was finding my place in the friends realm, sort of figuring out where I fit there, but I was sick. I was experiencing headaches every single day. I was popping Tylenol like it was Smarties. My mom would have Tylenol ready for me every single day when I got home from school because I was having headaches. That's not normal for a 12 to 13-year-old child. When I look back at pictures of myself from that time, I also notice I was pretty pale and sickly very skinny, sickly, unhealthy looking. So I went to the doctor. My parents were like, okay, this is enough. You are sick. Let's figure out what the heck is going on. So my doctor said, you need glasses. That's why you have headaches. She was wrong. I did not need glasses. Well, I did need glasses, but those are not the reason that I was having headaches. She also thought that I had Crohn's disease, and I was tested for that. It was a traumatic experience. If you've ever had an upper GI, it was no fun for me. But that was also not it. I think I could have also told her that I didn't have Crohn's disease, but that's fine. I had blood work, and my SED rate was increasing and increasing and increasing. The SED rate is an indication of inflammation. Something is inflamed in the body. So I told my doctor, I said, hey, I know what that is. Like, I can pinpoint that. I know what's inflamed. It's this little, like, lump right here that I have in my lymph node. It, like, pops out. I told her, I was like, is this why my SED rate is high? Is this why I'm sick? And she's like, nah, it's just swollen from an old cold. And I was like, I haven't had a cold. But okay, I trust you because you're my doctor. Well, folks, sure you know where this is going. So this kind of lump or bump on the side of my neck got bigger. And my dad noticed it one day, and he was like, that's not right. It looks like there's a golf ball in your neck. Let's go to the doctor. She felt it. She examined me. She didn't think it was anything serious. She definitely told me that because of the way that it felt, that it was not likely cancerous, which was great news, but that we should have a chest x-ray just to be sure. So we did. We went and had a chest x-ray that day. And what we found from that chest x-ray was actually a tumor in my chest, leaning on my heart, roughly the size of a softball. A cancerous tumor, roughly the size of a softball in the middle of my chest. And that, of course, changed my entire identity, changed the trajectory of my life. I went on to find out that I had stage 3A Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it was in my chest. It was in my lymph node up here, and there was also some in my spleen. So that is where my journey begins. A lot of times it feels like that's where my life began. I have to think back very hard to remember sort of what life was like pre-cancer. And it seems like sort of everything from that point really defines who I am and who I have become. I called one of my good friends at the time to let her know that I had cancer. And she asked me if my hair was going to fall out. And I thought she was so dumb, you guys. Like, I was like, no. Did you hear what I said? There's a tumor inside my chest the size of a softball. Clearly, it's been there for a while. I think if I had the type of cancer that made your hair fall out, that it would already be gone by now. Dummy. But I did go to my doctor, my oncologist, the next day, and I was like, hey, my friend asked me this really stupid question about my hair falling out. Like, I'm totally safe, right? As a 14-year-old girl with beautiful long hair, like, I'm safe, right, doc? And he had to break the bad news to me. That is not the type of cancer that makes your hair fall out. It is, in fact, the treatment, the chemotherapy that does that, and informed me that, yes, my hair would likely fall out, and I would lose every last bit of it on my body. I love to tell that story because it really just demonstrates the naivety of this young 14-year-old child that I had grown up with no problems. And I lived a great life. I had a great home life. Like I told you, I was good in school. I had some friends. You know, things were really great. And I had no scope of the situation. I was the first person in my family that had ever been diagnosed with cancer. So that's where I sat. I did end up having 5 rounds of chemotherapy. My hair did fall out. And I had some radiation. Only a few of my friends knew what was going on. Of course, all my teachers at school did, but it was something that was kind of like embarrassing to me. Like, I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want anybody to treat me different. And I was living my life as somebody that was being treated for cancer. It was, luckily, the chemotherapy was not so toxic that it took me out of my day-to-day activities. I was still able to participate in my competitive cheerleading team and also on my volleyball team at school. There was some setbacks, like I wasn't really allowed to stunt or tumble because my doctor didn't want me getting injured due to, like, my blood counts and things like that. So I did have some setbacks at that time, but mostly I was able to live a normal life as I could with cancer. Now, 2 years after that, I was 16, in just starting off my sophomore year in high school, maybe experimenting with some high school activities that I should not have been. I won't go into detail there. But I really felt like I was peaking. I was like, yes, okay, I'm done with this cancer thing. Like, my hair had grown back. I was fully active again in my sports. I felt really good about myself. I felt like I was really starting to know my place in the realm of friendships, if that makes sense. And I really felt good about myself. But then, boom, I actually had a checkup with my oncologist and some scans, and found out that I had relapsed and that the cancer had returned when I was just entering into my sophomore year of high school. Now, this time around, it was not all rainbows and butterflies and sunshine. This was some serious shnikes that we were getting into. The second time you have cancer, it's not all fun and games. Like, the shit was hard. I had to have very, very toxic chemotherapy that really put me on my ass, and I was in the hospital a lot. I had just tons of side effects and things that went wrong. I was on immunotherapy, which had me literally barfing every half hour. I'm so sorry to be graphic, but there was one point in time where I was okay enough to be discharged from the hospital, but I had to take this medication, and it made me so sick that I would take it. Well, the one medication made me very sick, and then I had other oral medication, and because I was so sick and vomiting so often, I would take my oral medication and stare at the clock and force myself to keep it down for a half hour, because that's how long the doctors told me, you can't barf it back up. Once it's in there for a half hour, you're good, barf all you want. But I would stare at this little grandfather clock that we had in our house and watch the minutes go by, so that as soon as it hit a half hour, I could barf my brains out again. That's how sick that I was. There was no participating in sports at that time or participating in life. I was either in a hospital bed or on my couch watching Family Feud and Price is Right every day. And it was a terrible time. Now, the thing I want to point out here is that everybody navigating this situation, myself, my parents, my friends, nobody knew what to do, ever. I kind of just sat there feeling really, really bad for myself, and everything was just woe is me, because I knew that my friends were out doing things that I wanted to be doing. I knew that they had boyfriends or that they had crushes on boys. I knew that they were out, getting into things that high school kids get into, and the fact that I couldn't do that was the worst time of my life. I would say, I was not clinically diagnosed with anything other than cancer back then, but I would say I was probably depressed at that point in my life. And like I say, I don't blame anybody, because none of us knew what was going on. But I just kind of wish that there was somebody there to talk me through the mental part of it. And that's all I'll say about that. I made it through, obviously. I'm still alive. And my junior year of high school was still a little bit rough. I navigated high school the best I could. Thank God my teachers, most of them were like, oh, this girl has cancer, just pass her. And by the time I got into my senior year of high school, I was feeling really great. Just like I said before, my hair had grown back. I was able to participate in sports again. I was really feeling good about myself. Got myself a little boyfriend. And things were going swimmingly at that time. And then the world collapsed again, you guys. Oh, I'm so sorry to tell you. But yes, right before the day I was supposed to leave for college, the day I was supposed to leave for college, I had an appointment with my oncologist who reviewed some of my most recent scans and told me it looked like disease had returned. Holy cow. Well, there is no having cancer 3 times. You can't just do that. It's like the survival rate is not good. So my family and I ended up visiting some really top tier cancer hospitals in the United States. We went to Johns Hopkins, and we also went to Dana-Farber, and just kind of talked to those doctors and asked what the protocols would be. 2 very different treatment options for me. One was like very aggressive bone marrow transplant. The other one was like, hey, we'll let you live your life the best you can and see if we can get this under control a different way. At the time, I was very like balls to the wall, like, no, let's do everything we can, bone marrow transplant. But actually, it was my dad who did some research, which I can only imagine what was going through him and my mother's head as far as like, your child has cancer for a 3rd time, what are you going to do? And they were really pushed to the edges of sort of problem solving to figure out what they could do for me. And what my dad learned was that actually diet has an impact on your body and the health of your body. And this is just something that we as a family didn't know. I mean, we knew to clear your plate at dinner time. We knew that you were to eat what you were given, those kinds of things, but we didn't really have any sort of understanding of the human body or what you should feed it to keep it healthy. Just kind of was like, we ate what we ate. I had a bologna and cheese sandwich every day. Cheetos were my life. I still really love Cheetos. A bowl of Cheerios in the morning, or a Pop-Tart, like those kinds of things. So there was a seed planted in my head. That is the thing that I want to say. There was a seed planted in my head over that summer where I was supposed to go from high school to college. And I decided to latch on to what my dad was saying. I read a bunch of books. I researched a bunch. I figured out that possibly what the things that I was eating before could have maybe not caused the cancer, but definitely didn't help. The things I was eating was kind of feeding the cancer. And at that point in time, like I say, a seed was planted in my head. And the seed was that I had control. And this is something that I never knew before. I didn't know I had control over anything. I always just did what people told me to do. I did what the doctors told me to do. I accepted the chemo and the radiation and all the medicine, and I was made to be sick. And I accepted that, and I just laid there because I had no control. Well, this is the first time in my life that I was like, wow, I have control. Like, I can try this. I have a variable that I can change here. And it worked. So I took the 3 months over summer. I changed my diet. And at that time, it was only that. There was no spirituality or mentality or anything like that. It was just all physical. And I had another follow-up CAT scan, and there was no sign of disease. And I was very excited, clearly. I remember visiting my oncologist's office that day for her to tell me there's no disease. And I remember just being so excited to tell her, like, dude, listen to what I did. I mean, I changed my diet. I started eating fruits and vegetables, and I kind of cut out all this other stuff from my diet. And she was great. And I loved her. She was an excellent doctor and woman, but she didn't care at all. She was just kind of like, whatever you did, keep on doing it because it worked. I think she didn't want to hear anything about alternative or holistic approach to anything. So I was very excited. And from that point forward, just kind of was preaching to everybody that would listen to me that, you know, your lifestyle has a direct impact on your potential to have disease. And I went on speaking engagements, and I did all kinds of things to sort of advocate and educate people on the importance of diet and a healthy lifestyle. Yay, that was my cancer journey. So during that kind of second bout of cancer, I was told that I would never have children. And the reason for that was just because the chemotherapy and the radiation and just all the toxins that were in my body just destroyed my ability, destroyed my eggs, and the ability for me to have kids. I remember having a conversation with my oncologist about potentially moving my ovaries out of the field of radiation, because I was to have radiation down there near all my lady parts. And they determined that it didn't matter. They determined, no, we're not gonna put you through surgery to move your ovaries out of the field of radiation, because it won't matter. The things that you're getting right now are so toxic that it's over. You're not going to be able to have kids no matter what. And I guess just to give you another sort of scope of my mindset and being a child with cancer, I was having this conversation with my parents. Like, they were discussing with me, Kara, do you understand what this means? This means, you're not going to be able to have children when you're grown and when you're older. And I said, okay, yes, I understand what you're telling me. Can I please leave and go to the lacrosse game right now? And they were like, jaw on the floor. Like, what the hell are you talking about? What do you mean, can I go to the lacrosse game? I didn't care. I was like, okay, yes, I heard you. I can't have kids. But all of my friends are at this game at the high school. It's a big game. Like, only the cool people are going to be there. I can't not go to this game. So drive me there now. I got to go to this lacrosse game. That was my reaction. That's just another kind of picture of, you're 17, 18 years old, and very few things matter other than your sort of social status, right? So fast forward, I'm unable to have kids, and I want to take you to another moment where there was another seed planted in my head, and it was by a nurse practitioner at an integrative doctor's office that I went to. I started seeing an integrative doctor more often once I understood that I wanted control over my own lifestyle and how the rest of my life and my health played out. And I saw a nurse practitioner there, and I told her sobbingly that, during this time where I had cancer in my life, that they told me I was unable to have children. And she looked at me and she said, nobody should have ever told you that, because there's always ways, there's always things that we can do. And I was like, what? I thought it was more black and white than that. And she said, is it okay if you get pregnant right now? And I said, yes, because at the time I was with my now husband, Matt Shaw. And I said, yeah, we're not really ready for kids, but like, if we got pregnant on accident, then yes, that would be okay. And she said, okay, here's what I want you to do. And she made a plan for me. And the plan included some supplements. And I don't think that the supplements mattered at all. Maybe they did. I shouldn't say that. I'm sure they played some kind of role. But what mattered is that that day is there was a seed planted in my head. And this is where my sort of emotional and spiritual and mental side of me was born. It was because, okay, I know that I can help myself physically, but now what this woman is telling me that it's almost mental. She said, nobody should have ever told you that. It was like immediate reversal. She put this seed in my head that was like, oh, maybe there's still a chance. Maybe I can have kids. And that seed was planted, and that seed grew and grew and grew. And I think it was like a year later, maybe a year and a half later, I was having some weird symptoms, like some pain, like weird pains down in my like uterus, like ovaries area, that I was like, what's going on down there? Like, something's happening. And I just, how I just kind of was like, it's fine. Just, I'll make sure that I really get up on my diet, make sure that I'm really treating myself well. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, something's wrong. And I laid up one night Googling my symptoms. Turns out my symptoms, whatever they were, whatever I typed into Google, it was like, okay, A, you have ovarian cancer. And I was like, shit, I freaking have cancer again? Damn it. Or B, you're pregnant. And I was like, okay, well, I'm definitely not pregnant, because I can't get pregnant, or else I don't think I can get pregnant. So I was just going down the road of like, okay, you have ovarian cancer. Let's figure this out. Let's figure out what we're going to do now. Excuse me. And the first thing I did, I laid up all night Googling. I decided, okay, I have ovarian cancer. The first thing I'm going to do is go to the Walgreens down the street, grab a pregnancy test, just be safe, just to rule that out. Even though I know it's not a possibility, we're going to rule it out. Went home, peed on the stick, walked around the house. I did think about what I would do if it was positive, But the more I thought about it, the more sad that I was that it was going to come back negative. Like I just had this terrible sort of anguish in my body that the test was going to come back negative, and I was knowing that it was going to be negative and that I was going to have to then deal with having ovarian cancer. Lo and behold, went in, picked up the stick. I saw one line and I was like, dang it, I knew. See? I'm like, I knew it. And I looked at it a little closer and I was like, wait, is that a line? Wait, is that another line? Is that 2 lines? It says on the directions, even if it is a faded line, that it is a positive test. So then, of course, you take like 3 more and they all came out positive, and I freaked out. I totally freaked. I totally lost it. And I called Matt Shaw, and I couldn't even get the words out, and I'm sure he thought that I was dying or in some kind of accident or something. And him being the straightforward person that he was not celebratory. He was like, okay, you need to call the doctor, go get a blood test, make sure this is real, see how far along you are, and then we'll talk about it. I'm like, okay. He's very get to the point kind of man. I was losing my mind. Okay, so fast forward, I'm a cancer survivor. There's been just a lot of havoc wreaked in my body. Things don't really work like they're supposed to work. I end up finding out I have Wolff-Parkinson's-White, which is a heart disorder, kind of like a disorder with my heart. It's like got like an extra electrical circuit. Crazy. I have some other problems with my heart. I have lungs that don't work so great. My kidneys don't work so great. I'm finding all this out as I'm going through my pregnancy. And I went from, hey, you're pregnant, congratulations, to, hey, you need a high risk OB and we need to monitor you like every second of every day. So I was then diagnosed with preeclampsia. I had blood pressure that was through the roof, was put on medication. At one point in time or another, when you have preeclampsia, it's hard to control. And I was in and out of the hospital, but the last time that I went to the hospital, I knew that I wasn't leaving without a baby. And I was not very far along in my pregnancy, unfortunately. I was about 24 weeks when I went into the hospital for the last time. And they kind of tell you, like, it's the only way to stop your blood pressure rising or to cure the preeclampsia is to have the baby, which is terrible news, because when your baby is only 24 or 25 weeks and it's not supposed to come out for another 3 months, 4 months, it's pretty alarming. It's a pretty scary time. But there was nothing left to do. At one point, it gets to this certain point where it's like, okay, either I'm going to die and my organs are going to shut down, or we're going to get this baby out and kind of see what happens. So that's what happened. I had an emergency C-section. My child was born at 25 weeks and 6 days. He weighed 1.1 ounces. I'm sorry, he weighed 1 pound. 1 pound and 5.5 ounces. I don't know why I just messed that up. So he was like this big. He was a little nugget. And I learned later that he was resuscitated on the way to the NICU. So he basically died on the way there and was resuscitated and put on a breathing tube. I learned even later that during that process that he broke a rib, which healed on its own. So he had this crazy entry into the world, and I knew that he would be okay. For whatever reason, when I was having my C-section, I was like totally terrified for myself. Just could not get over just how freaking scary it was to be there having this procedure done. I was so scared, but I was not scared for him. Just like, I don't know if that's mother's intuition, but I was like, all right, the baby's fine. Like, am I okay? Somebody give me a popsicle. And I did have a popsicle. Anyway, I knew he was okay. Luciano is his name. We named him Luciano Matthew Shaw. He ended up spending 7 months in the NICU. And that was a roller coaster journey in and of itself. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is where everything is born. From his birth was where all of my mental strategy came. I just really learned sitting there beside your child's isolette. There is nothing you have left. I lost control. There's just nothing you can do for your child. The only thing you can do is be positive. It sounds so cheesy when you say it like that, but it was the only thing I could do was check my vibe when I was in there, and kind of pour that into him, pour that positivity into him, pour that love into him in hopes of his survival. And I found this little, I don't know who gave me this. If anybody's listening and you gave me this thing, thanks, because I'm pretty sure it changed my life. It was a little positivity journal. And each page, each page had a different journaling exercises, so you could draw things, or you could talk about things, and it just prompted you for all these positivity things, and it just really helped. And I remember sort of having this kind of understanding of, our thoughts creating reality, and Matt telling me, we've got to stay positive, we've got to stay positive, and that really helped us through, and I think that that's what helped Lucci through. And I'll tell you one more story. There was one point in Lucci's NICU journey early on when his kidneys stopped working. He decided that he was going to stop having any urine output. He wasn't peeing. And it got to the point where the neonatologist, the little baby doctor, came in and said, we're going to do this, this, and this. If we can't get his kidneys working, it's not, babies that weigh 2 pounds, they don't go on dialysis. Like, if their kidneys don't work, there's nothing more that we can do. That was a conversation that we had to have. So I remember that night I went home, and I was just kind of like in this stupor of hearing that if this doesn't happen, that it's over, and you're going to lose your child. And I remember exactly where I sat on the couch, and I remember just closing my eyes and visualizing pee. Oh, sorry. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but I was like, this kid's got to pee. He's got to pee. He's going to pee, and I'm sending the pee to him. And I visualized the pee. I know this sounds crazy, stay with me. Exiting my front door and getting into the car and turning down the road and turning right down the next road and getting onto the interstate and driving to the exit that the hospital is on, getting off the exit, making this turn, making that turn, driving to the hospital parking lot, parking the car, going into the lobby, navigating to the elevators, going up to the 3rd floor, pressing the button, entering the NICU. And like, I just visualized that energy of urine going to my child and into his isolette and peeing. And I just visualized that over and over again, just like the energy of that going to him. And I think it was 2 days later, I did get a phone call. I was at the vet with my dog, got a phone call from one of the NICU nurses. A happy day, your child peed. I said, whoa, okay, energy is a real thing. Energy is real. Vibrations are real. Your thoughts are real. And that really sealed the deal for me, guys. I'm just kind of like, okay, now I'm really invested in this. And ever since then, this is 6 years ago now, ever since then, I've been sort of using all of these experiences, my experience with cancer, my experience with having a micro preemie who was born at 25 weeks. I've been using all of these experiences to sort of craft my view of how we use our thoughts to help us through life. And I've been working with children, since I was a child myself. I worked at the Parks and Rec department at my local town. I worked with cheerleading teams. I've been coaching since I was, 18 years old, and I love to work with kids. And I thought, God, if I could just teach them how to do this, like if someone would have helped me while I was in the hospital bed, like, depressed and hating my life, like what that would have done for me, what kind of impact would have that have had, how would that have changed the course of things? I thought, I got to get this information out to these kids. I have to teach them how to do this. I have to teach them how to leverage their minds. And now here we are today. I have a podcast, have a company, I have talks that I do. With my athletes every week on how to do this stuff. And it makes me so happy. It makes me think like, you always want to think you're making a difference in people's lives or whatever. And cool, I'm doing that. So that's my story. That's how I overcame those challenges, and that's what put me here today. recording this episode and telling everybody my story and how it connects. And I thank you for listening. And just remember, any seed that you're planting, what seeds are you planting into your athletes' minds or your kids' minds that will just grow into these things later in life? And I think that's something to remember. We tend to talk with our children and we talk them to death. We're trying to get them to learn these important concepts, but really all it takes is just that little nudge, just that little seed that says, hey, maybe ... And then it grows and it transforms into something that's bigger than anything we could ever imagine, which I think is cool. So plant those seeds with your kids today. Take my story as a positive reinforcement that your thoughts do create your reality. We can overcome anything. And I want you all to have a beautiful day. And I will talk to you next week on the show. Thanks. Bye.